Okay, you guys, it is December 5th. I cannot believe that. The kids were like, it's only 20 days till Christmas. They were so excited this morning. So it's our December 5th Q&A, and we are hitting record. We'll see who else shows up. But for now, it is just Katie and I have a question from Lisa about honey. So I'm going to start with that. Her question was, what's the lowdown on honey? She wants to know about local honey versus raw honey versus regular honey, and how to kind of differentiate all of those. So let's start first with regular honey. So regular honey that is in the like little bear, the little bear containers, tubes, that kind of honey. And it doesn't just have to be in the bear tubes, but regular honey, anything that is other than raw honey, has been heated. And for honey in particular, same as agave, when those are heated, it changes on a molecular level and creates an inflammatory response in the body. So when you're doing honey, you really ideally want to get raw honey. And then the question is, what's the difference? And let me back up with raw honey. Sometimes it's liquidy, but over time it will turn into this hard substance, almost like a butter, almost like a spread. So if it's super, super fresh, recently out of the beehive, it will be liquidy. And if you buy it at the store, more times than not, unless it's super fresh at the store, but at the grocery market, more times than not, it's a bit more of a spread. So that is the deal on raw honey. What's important to know is that there is local honey versus regular raw honey. So local honey has some really, really great benefits, especially if anyone has allergies. So if you have allergies and you can get yourself like seasonal allergies, you can get yourself some local honey. It will absolutely, well, I shouldn't say absolutely, but very often it helps to ease seasonal allergies. By the way, so does just eating an anti-inflammatory diet in general, pushing inflammation out, really, really, really helps with seasonal allergies. I have many clients who have completely eliminated their allergies by following this way of eating. So that's kind of the deal on the honey. Most importantly is that it's raw, and if you can get raw and local, super gold stars. So that is Ms. Lisa's question, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Katie and Michelle. What do you guys have going on for me? Any questions, Katie or Michelle, or did you guys just come to learn?
Yeah.
Hear what everyone else had to say. Well, let me ask you this. First of all, because I love to share wins, how is the week going? Michelle, I'm super curious how the macros are going for you. It's really early to be noticing much of a difference hormonally speaking, but have you noticed any difference? How is it journaling that? Share with me a little bit about that process.
Well, I've been definitely tracking everything to plus or minus 6, which is usually 2 out of it might be spot on, like plus or minus 6, or maybe 1's off. Like one day I had an apple in an emergency situation, and that put me way over in carbs and stuff. But so I've lost a couple pounds, which is probably some inflammatory weight I had from a guest from England who bought all these goodies, which I ate on purpose, which is fine. I see her every decade. So I think what happens to me is I'll lose the inflammatory stuff pretty easily, and then I just am stuck. So I'm at that point now. So we'll see if I go down at all. Usually I just stay here regardless of how much food I eliminate from my diet. In the recent past, the one time that I did manage to go a little below my inflated weight now is when I did it for an extremely long amount of time. And
when
then,
you did anti-inflammatory eating for a extremely long period of time? It
yeah,
is
more
the
on the
lifestyle.
order of like, it was months.
Yeah.
But for me, because I don't have a particular sickness, I can eat something if I really want to. I'll eat it, and then I'm back and I have to start all over again. So I never really lose it. So I don't know if I'll ever lose it this time.
That brings up a really hot topic. So it is that, you know, when a person is really sick, when they're like fighting for their life, like it makes it very easy to, well, it's not always easy, but it's easier, right? It gives you definitely more motivation to eat a certain way. Like if
Yeah.
you know it directly impacts you, that gives you motivation. If you feel good and you're like, like I don't really feel sick, but I know it's for the best, and like it's just the scale going up or down, that can be a bit more of it's an interesting journey. It's a different journey in terms of maintaining this way of eating. When you said that when your weight came down, it was because you maintained that way of eating for a long time. How did it feel to you to eat that way for a long time? Like, did it feel like a struggle? Did it feel good? Like, talk to me about that process, that journey.
Well, I've been eating, say, 90% anti-inflammatory for years, and I know my body just likes it. When I don't do it, I feel it immediately and the next morning in terms of brain fog and fatigue. And so I definitely prefer it, and my body prefers it. And I think there's a history of diabetes in my family, and although I haven't been diagnosed, I always felt like it's wonky. And so I think on my own, I've kind of discovered this because I don't feel good any other way.
Yeah.
So it's I do prefer it, but now it's just my struggle is just a huge amount of weight that's just there, that just came on, and coupled with brain fog, increased brain fog that I can't budge. So before I used to be able to budge it, and now I can't, and the brain fog too. So
that brain fog is directly related to the inflammation. So if you what is like your baseline number where you're like, I don't feel inflamed, I feel great at this weight, like what would that number ish
it's probably like 157. I was able to maintain like 157 easily, but now I'm like,
good.
I felt good. It was but now I'm a good 10 pounds more than that. I have this big fatigue, and so the first time in my life I can't exercise.
Yeah.
So there's something going on that I don't know what it is, and I'm going to do blood work soon to find out. But whatever it is or isn't, I know that anti-inflammatory eating is going to be the cure.
Right. Yeah, it's so true, right? So a couple of things. Number one, I just want to go to that you have diabetes in your history in your family. Doing that plus or minus 6 grams, or being really as consistent as possible with your protein, carbs, and fat, and getting enough protein is an absolute key component, along with anti-inflammatory eating, to support you. So you're definitely on the right track for the preventing the diabetes, the stabilizing the hormones, rebooting the metabolism, all of those things. What I hear is a little bit interesting though. On one hand, you're like, okay, I can kind of eat what I want and you're not really sick. But on the other hand, it's like, well, actually there is brain fog and fatigue. Like there are some things other just than the number on the scale that are showing up and correlating with the number on the scale. Right. And so what that tells me is that actually it is inflammation. It's not just okay, it's not just fat gain, it is more inflammation and toxins. And inflammation and toxins, if our body can't process them enough, right? If the liver's in overdrive and it can't get to them, it will create fat reserves, fat pockets to store the toxins and inflammation as far away from your organs as possible. That's a survival mechanism. That's beautiful. There are some people it does not, like, everybody's a little bit unique, and sometimes inflammation, the body won't create those fat pockets for whatever reason. Their metabolism just burns really, really hot, and they just need, like, they're constantly running through fuel. But the inflammation goes straight to their organs and straight to their joints. And often they are actually impacted with more serious health conditions than those of us who, like, can create those fat pockets, as long as that doesn't stay there forever. Because then we're sitting in, like, this outer layer of toxicity. That's not healthy either. And so, but what I'm hearing is that if you are experiencing symptoms of fatigue, of brain fog, that's not just because, like, your calories are off a little bit and you're not, your metabolism isn't moving through. It's because there are toxins and inflammation your body's not processing. And so I think if we begin to change the thoughts, just the nuances of the thoughts that we tell ourselves are so powerful. So to go from, like, okay, anti-inflammatory eating is really, yes, it's, like, amazing and it's beautiful, and it helps me feel great, but, like, actually it may have a dramatic and direct impact on the brain fog, on which I think, but it's what we tell ourselves, those subtle nuances in the moment when it's like, well, am I going to have that 10% of the time, whatever inflammatory options that may be, like, that may help guide you so that it does become this lifestyle where it's like, okay, there will be times in your life when you're like, yeah, I'm my whoever, your best friend from England or whatever is here and bringing you my treats, and, like, yeah, I'm going to do that. But there may also be times in your life where you're like, you know what, the brain fog's high, the fatigue is super low, and it's actually, like, because I see that direct correlation, it's not as worth it to me. But unless in that moment we're making that connection, if we're like, it's just a number on the scale, like, it's not as significant. Right?
No, I agree. And it's over time, it's become more that I just want to show up as my best self, and I can't function any other way. Like going to a conference, my husband's like, why are you packing all this stuff? I'm like, because I cannot function on normal people food. I call, I can't, so it's awesome. It's definitely, but yeah, the little extra bit. And now I guess because I'm undiagnosed yet, I don't know if I even have anything other than, like, menopause or something, or old age. I don't know.
You don't look that old.
So who knows? We'll find out in a couple weeks what's up.
Right. Well, and the other thing I want to ask, and I think I asked this and we kind of, I didn't fully, or it wasn't super clear with the question, or I may have interrupted you, but what was easy about maintaining anti-inflammatory eating for the long period of time where you were like, I'm at 157, I'm maintaining, I feel great physically, I feel great, like, in my mind, my energy is high. What allowed for you to do that? And then what were the challenges?
I guess at that time when I did it for the longest without any interruption, I had a lot more energy around my life because of the business and stuff like that. So I had more time to plan, which is always easier, right? Are you still there? Because you're frozen. I don't know if I'm frozen. Are you frozen? I see you, Katie. Is Jenny frozen?
I think so.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, Jenny's frozen.
She must have lost her internet.
Okay. Nope, she's gonna try. You're the host, Katie. Take it away.
I don't know how to do that.
Take it away, Katie. But I wanted to tell you, your idea of smushing the oils in my food has been a lifesaver.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I've absolutely been doing that like the last 2 days or whenever since you told me, because I used to rely so much on nuts and I can't eat the nuts. Well, I'm experimenting not eating the nuts. So I was like coming up short, but I've been putting it in my butternut squash, in my sweet potato, in my shake.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. Just a teaspoon of coconut oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's amazing, isn't it, how easy it is once we well, this is dumb.
we
Why
thought
am I
of
making this so hard?
Yeah, but I mean, if you didn't think of it, you didn't think of it. So I appreciate that. That's been a game changer.
Oh, good.
How are you doing?
I'm struggling, but it's okay. I know I've had Lyme for almost 30 years and finally found somebody who's willing to try to treat it. And he's the one who put me on to Jenny. Oh, she's back.
Okay, good. Hey!
Oh my goodness. Did you guys stay here the whole time?
Yeah,
Katie
we've been
was
talking.
hosting.
I did not know what, like, everything froze, but like my mouse pad froze. Like it wouldn't let me click. It was so weird. Okay, sorry about it. That's never happened before. Well, good. I'm glad that the recording continued. I was like, oh no, we're all gonna have to hop back in. I apologize. Okay, so we were saying like what was the easy part and what was the difficult part in terms of maintaining that?
So when I'm in the groove and going along, it's fine, and I love the way I feel. And it's usually something will derail me, like it has to be more than like a work event or like the normal stuff I've can do now, like traveling. I can do. It's something like it's usually probably Christmas, a Christmas treat. It's again the English food. I have not found a substitute for like the black pudding that you flame, and that's a tradition. Once I have the sugar, a taste of sugar or fall off, it's extremely hard to not do that for like a week.
Yes.
Not all like crazy, but like a piece of pie a day is massive, right? Yeah. So it's usually that has me fall off the wagon, like an event. Like it's usually Christmas every year, and then it's oftentimes my kids. They'll make me something, and it's so precious. I actually take pictures of it. I saw your picture of your child made you a salad or something, but mine made me. It had some sugar stuff in it. Like she knew I loved Almond Joy. Well, she knew I loved nuts, so she put an Almond Joy in it. But Almond Joy has it's stuff like that. But and it's all she had to give that was a treat. So of course I'm going to eat it. And she's watching me eat it, and I loved it, and I'd do it again. But it's stuff. It's usually the kids like making me some sort of offering that I will eat. And, that or Christmas. But other than that, I'm all right.
So how often would you say, and really take some time to think about this and get super honest with yourself, because I feel like for me, and I've seen this with a lot of us, like as humans, what we tell ourselves is not always what is actually happening, which is one of the reasons I feel like food journaling is so good, is like we have to see the truth of what's happening and how our body's responding. But how often would you say that happens where you're like, okay, I end up with some sort of like the sugar, and then it's for that week, it's like, okay, like you said, that craving gets so intense when we eat it just because of the chemical reaction taking place in the body. How often would you say that might happen over the course of a year or a month, or you can kind of put it in whatever time unit that's most appropriate? But
just say Christmas. It's usually Christmas, and then the kids might do it like twice. So maybe 4 or 5 times out of the year.
Out of the whole year. So for only 4 or 5 weeks out of the whole year, you think that you're having something with sugar in it, typically?
Well, I would make a different caveat to say I've never, so 4 or 5 times, like say for a week or so, I'll be picking at stuff that I know. I've never gone completely off of sugar in like condiments and
Gotcha. Okay.
so that's the first time. This is now the first time I've ever gone completely off and completely off coffee and completely off. I would have a quarter cup of gluten-free oats and a quarter cup of beans. So this whole time I've been, that's I say 90%, like I'd have the beans, but but no other, like usually just vegetables and protein. But this is the first time I'm completely 100% off every speck of sugar and stuff.
Amazing. And how many weeks has that been for you, that it's been like the condiments, the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle, would you say?
Well, it was 6 weeks before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And then however many weeks it's been after, like it's only like 1.5 or something.
Right. So in those 6-week time period, right? I'm asking all this because I'm like the data girl. So I'm like, that is going through my mind. And that 6-week time period, right? Were you gaining weight during that time, or was weight starting to come
I
up?
wasn't losing. I lost the initial 2 and then it just stayed the same.
It stayed the same. Okay.
Yeah.
So you had gained like the 10 pounds beforehand.
Yeah.
About 10-ish pounds beforehand, and then you lost the initial 2 and it stayed the same. And as it was staying the same, your brain fog and your fatigue didn't really improve either, right? Am I saying that correct? Like all of those also stayed the same?
There was initial, I thought there was an initial improvement, and then I wrote you one day, I was like, could you have a relapse? Because I suddenly felt bad again, and then we thought it was without any change in the diet, and we thought it was probably stress.
Right.
Because I went from a small upswing of feeling better, and then I had a big relapse. But in that time too, I was still trying to exercise when I had the relapse. And since then, I haven't exercised. I've tried, and I had a relapse. I was much more tired.
Yeah. Okay, so the reason I'm asking you all these questions is because I am honestly, what my gut is telling me is I'm curious if there is some sort of fungus, candida, parasite, neurotoxin type thing going on in your body. Because if there was a die-off, which can happen, or stress can exacerbate it, like that is at relapse. And if the extreme fatigue and the brain fog is like some of the most common attributes you might experience with Lyme or parasites, or like I said, fungus, candida, that kind of chronic, persistent type pathogen. It's relatively challenging sometimes to get diagnosed with that and to detect. And if you're eating as clean as you have been for as long as you have, and not to say like the nuances of the condiments does make a big difference,
right?
But it makes even more of a difference, to be honest. Like if you are struggling, I shouldn't say struggling, but if there is a pathogen type thing in your body, it's going to be even more sensitive to these types of foods that you're eating, to having just a little bit of sugar. And I'm not a doctor, I can't diagnose, but I am really, really good at finding patterns in people and seeing the foods that they're eating, how long they've been eating that, what they're doing, and being like, okay, there's something else that it feels like is impacting you. Yeah. And that is what my gut's saying. Have you traveled internationally at all?
Oh yeah, I did more than a year travel in India, Nepal, Africa. I went around the world backpacking.
So cool. How long ago was that?
a while, like uh, maybe I was 32 and I'm 50, like 20 years ago.
Yeah. Do you remember at all, not that this is a determining factor, but do you remember ever getting sick during that, like on your travels? Did you have any bouts of the, stomach bug, so to speak?
Oh yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would honestly, I am highly suspectful of parasites to have been exposed. So once you pick up an international parasite, it's the opposite of like when we get a virus or a cold, we become more immune to that strain, that virus. It's actually the opposite with parasites. So once we pick up a parasite, especially an international parasite, our body, our immune system, our body does not recognize it because geographically it's from such a different location. And so our body doesn't really know what to do with it. And it's really easy for them to kind of take hold, and it suppresses the immune system. And it's almost like you become a magnet for other parasites. And it's such a bummer. I traveled basically all over the world too, and I didn't know about it for 20 years, these parasites that I had. So it's not to say that your case would be the same case as mine. Everyone's different. But what you are describing to me, honestly, I really do think it is something beyond some inflammation from your diet. It really does feel like there's some sort of neurotoxin or something like that going on.
What about adrenal fatigue?
It impacts your hormones. It impacts your adrenals massively. Parasites are one of the least known about causing most disruption in our body. Perfect. And they get into our emotional well-being, into our emotional bodies, and they actually can impact the way we think and feel sometimes. It's crazy. They can actually go into your hormone, into your glands, and impact your, I had parasites and nest parasites inside my adrenal glands.
Ooh.
Inside my thyroid. Mine was really, really severe, but they can go all over the body, into organs, tissues. And the thing about parasites is that they have many, many different life cycles, and similar to Lyme, they will hide in what's called a biofilm, which is really difficult. It's like a bunker. It's those bunkers, if remember in 1999 when people are like, what's going to happen when we turn 2000, and some people had these bunkers with food. It's that's the parasite, or the spirochetes bunker, is this oh my gosh, you guys, biofilm. And it's really hard to get into it. Antibiotics can't crack it. There's supposedly some different herbs that can crack it, but it's challenging. And so the parasites, they thrive off of sugar. They thrive off of toxins. They thrive off of stress and low vibrational frequency. So that's one of the things I'm last week we talked about having fun and dancing in the kitchen. They do not do well when we're at high vibrational frequency. But because they have all these different life cycles, because they have biofilms, you can do an initial kill off, but then they will wait to hatch. And once they're about 10 to 14 days old, they can begin laying eggs. And many parasites produce 5,000 eggs per day. It's crazy. And so all of a sudden you're dealing with okay, you want to kill off the immature parasites, and then but there's some really tricky timing in terms of when you take medicine or supplements or do vibrational frequency healing. And the other thing, Michelle, is that they're quite challenging to diagnose. I was dying of them, and it took me 2 years and a ton of different doctors for anyone to listen to me. That was Dr. West, Katie, but he still didn't see them. I had to show him, and I was like, these are coming out of me. And he was like, okay, but he didn't see it on the blood work or anything. And he does really thorough work. And it was until I got down to Mexico with this other doctor who traveled all around the world, and he saw a picture of the parasite, and he was like, have you been to Africa and South America? And I said, yes. And he said, that's where that came from. And I started bawling my eyes out because I went to the White House, the doctor for the White House Center for Disease Control and Internal Health. And he, over the phone, and had me do a ton of stool work and blood work. None of it came back positive. It was all false negatives. And he said, when you're doing a parasite test, really the only way to be most accurate is if you do the stool sample in the office. And he's the only one I know who does it like this in New York City, I believe. And he, like, it's like you do the stool sample and they take it and then they like do right there on the spot. They like go through it and do the lab work. But that you can find people who use like quantum neurology, which is like a scientific, more nuanced method of like muscle testing. So they put you in very specific, I can't even fully explain it, but they put your body in specific weaknesses or strengths, and then they can test using vials that have specific energy of different parasites or bacteria or different things and let you know what, and I have found that to be extremely accurate if you have someone who knows what they're doing. And honestly, I think that that's, for me, I'm a science girl, so I wanted to do all the lab work and everything, but I, over the years, have gone back to the quantum neurology because it's so much more accurate than anything else. So I'm just putting it out there because even if your blood work comes back that the hormones are off, like we already know that, right? We already know based off of what you're sharing, like you're like, I'm going into menopause and I'm tired, my adrenals feel, we already know the hormones are off, but what's making the hormones off? So you can certainly support yourself through diet. You can certainly support yourself through the macronutrients, and you could even get on hormonal, bioidentical hormones or whatever your doctor may suggest, all of which is great. But what's the root cause of that? What's the root cause of the brain fog? That's not coming from hormones being off.
Oh, I thought it was. That's not.
I mean, maybe to some degree, but not like you're sharing with me, like how it's going to improve and then all of a sudden you're having like a rebound. Like hormones are generally pretty consistently off or pretty consistently on. Like they don't typically fluctuate so much like that. Like I'm okay and then I'm not okay, or I'm improving and then suddenly everything's bad.
Right.
Like that sounds much more like a die-off and release of neurotoxins, which impacts the hormones.
Right.
But then just like suddenly, like hormones are just more steady, consistent, and they take a steady, consistent time to heal, and they will be like a steady, consistently kind of deteriorate as well. So again, I'm not a doctor, but I do help a lot of people with parasites and Lyme, and I've yet to be wrong in terms of when I work with someone and can see the patterns. And I'm not saying it's parasites, but based off of what you've shared with me, traveling all around the world, backpacking, I would say like 99.9%, I would bet $100 that there's something going on with parasites with you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never thought of that.
I know, right? That was me too. I'm like, what? Like, never think careful because of parasites. Never. So there are a few doctors. There's one in particular that I work with out of Sun Valley, Idaho. His name is Stefan Seal, and I will say this. I've not found the perfect doctor for anything. I've found a combination of doctors that basically came together. I call them my dream team, and they helped to save me, right? Helped to save my life. And some of these doctors, a lot of these doctors have been the end all, like all that many different patients needed for me. I had so many different things going on with my body. I needed a number of different doctors, but Dr. West, who Katie goes to, is phenomenal. Again, he can diagnose if there's parasites inside your cells, like tiny microscopic, like blood parasites. He can see that and he can diagnose that. He can see sometimes if there's a disturbance in the red blood cells, And this is all through live blood analysis and dried blood analysis. So you can sometimes find other doctors to do this, but you want someone who knows how to, what is the right term that they use? It's not crack open and it's not smash, but essentially they smear the red blood cells. So they'll put like a glass lens down. They'll put your drop of blood, another glass lens, and then they'll look under the microscope. But if you can find a doctor that they just tap like with their pen, that's what it looks like. It may be more scientific, but they just tap with their pen. They're crushing. That's what it's called. They crush the red blood cells, and that allows them to see inside the red blood cell if there is something more specific hiding. Like sometimes that's how the doctors were able to identify the Lyme in me, because I did eat so well for so long and so much inflammation was out of me that I didn't have an environment where the Lyme thrived very well. And so they were kind of hiding in the red blood cells, but there were tons of them in there. So once he crushed that, he was like, yeah, you have 4 different strains of this. Same thing with the parasites. Sometimes I can see, but if you have any sort of intestinal parasites, which it doesn't sound like you have bloating or any sort of digestive symptoms. Yeah. So you may or may not have any intestinal parasites, but if you do have any intestinal parasites, that doesn't show up on my blood work. That will often show up, it will sometimes show up in stool tests, but again, it's like you almost have to be in the office 10 minutes later, have them go through it.
You want to hear something really freaky? What you just reminded me of?
What?
A couple years ago, my red blood cell count was going down and no one knew why. And it was going down, 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 but then it flattened. And it wasn't down enough so that anybody worried. And they diagnosed it as some like unspecific something. But there was, the red blood cells were not as I don't know, not as much as you're supposed to have. And 2 years ago, that was the last time I checked. They had me going back for every 6 months or something like that. And it was always stable. And so we didn't check for a while. And then I was negligent and didn't go back. So I guess we'll find out where my red blood cells are. But that's something with my red blood cells. They all die.
That is interesting. That is interesting. And I actually was just talking with someone who also, this person has Lyme and has been chronic Lyme, has had it for years and years and years, and like moved away to a different town to try and figure out what's been going on. And she and I were discussing, I'm trying to look this up really quick because she actually posted it on my Facebook, but it's this act that happens with your red blood cells, and it happens with Lyme. But what I found is that Lyme and parasites, typically if you have parasites, here's the other important thing to know. If you have parasites, you almost always, if not always, have some sort of chronic virus, a significant bacterial infection like Lyme or some sort of pathogen like that, as well as a fungus infection. They go hand in hand. And my doctor that I went to in Mexico, who is like world renowned, he is amazing. He said, Jenny, the problem is with parasites or Lyme or whatever it may be, so many doctors will be able to diagnose one of them. And they say, okay, we know what to do. We're going to kill that. We're going to attack it. We're going to support the body. But they don't address all of those. And because they're in like this little perfectly balanced ecosystem, say you get rid of the parasites. Okay, great. Right? My visual is a little bit off. I don't even know if you can follow me, but we'll pretend these are parasites. You get rid of the parasites and it just creates this extra hole where now the bacteria and the virus and the fungus can spread. So then those take more of a hold of your body. He said it is absolutely crucial that you identify all of those components of the ecosystem together. Otherwise, you're going to continue to have chronic symptoms. So this person is talking about, and you can Google it, cell death response to pathogens.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that may actually, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm such a dork. I get so excited to do this kind of work.
Geeking out. Jenny's
Can you
geeking
tell?
out.
But so here's the deal, right? If it's parasite or if it's Lyme, if your red blood cells were dying off, it could have been because of the pathogens that was taking place, which would absolutely connect this. I mean, you're going to have some hormonal imbalance going into menopause, but with everything you're doing with diet and like everything that you have done consistently with diet, it's not like you've just been doing this for a few weeks or even
Right.
just 6 weeks. This has been mostly a lifestyle. And
Mhm.
so it absolutely makes sense that your body is more sensitive to the nuances of a little bit of condiments, or you fell off the wagon a little bit. And to have that, when you experience that setback, again, that's not from, the setback is not because you had some sugar in a condiment. Like that is a more significant, the way you're describing it to me, it really does feel like a more significant neurotoxin type thing. I think we got something figured out, sister. So the question is like, how do you fall, like what do you do from here, right? Like what now? And it's again like finding a really good doctor who does quantum neurology. And then the other piece is having, okay, so there's a few theories on eliminating Lyme and eliminating parasites. And I personally feel that it takes, the saying, it takes a village. Like it takes a number of different ways to really effectively eliminate them. So number one, you want to boost the immune system, because if you do have parasites in you from those travels, like I did for over 20 years, I was undiagnosed with them. It really compromises the immune system. So number one, which means the immune system can't fight off those pathogens very easily. So number one is boosting the immune system. And how do you do that? Like Katie and I have been to the West Clinic, and they use IVs, really amazing IVs, to support your immune system. There's a lot of different things to look at to also upregulate your detox pathways. So that means like supplements like glutathione and methylated B12 and PHP. Like there's a lot of different supplements that can make it so that if there is a die-off, if there are neurotoxins in your body, you're able to push those toxins out with ease rather than reabsorb them, which happens to many people when there's neurotoxins in their body because they're just so gnarly to process. So improve the immune system, upregulate the detox pathways, and then finding binders. Binders are things that will help to absorb and kind of bind, almost like clot the neurotoxins so that you can push them out. So a few binders, if you go Googling binders, you're going to find like bentonite clay. You're going to find, what's the one? Is it silica? Do you remember, Katie? Starts with an S. I don't know if it's silica, but something like that starts with an S. You're going to find carbonized or activated charcoal. Those are probably the most common. What you want to know, activated charcoal will disrupt your gut biome, and it will absorb vitamins and minerals. Okay. The other thing that happens with parasites, and one of the reasons that we can become tired, not only because the immune system is in overdrive and it's important impacting our hormones, but also because the parasites will often absorb our vitamins, our minerals, our nutrients before we do. So it's like we're not getting everything our body needs to fully to thrive on a nutrient level. So getting enough nutrients to support your body, but not too many to also support the parasite. It's like that tricky line. And then of course the supplements that will help to eliminate the parasite. And there's a doctor, I think I was starting to say, in Sun Valley, Idaho. His name is Dr. Stephan, Stephan, Stephan Siele, Siele. And I've had a number of clients work with him. I have my whole family's worked with him. Again, he's not perfect, but he's really, really good. And one of the reasons I like him is he will take your DNA. You can send in hair samples, like the root that's attached, and he can use that to do the quantum neurology testing on you. And he gets very, very nuanced about what your specific body needs. So he tests for parasites, bacteria, virus, fungus, toxicity level. He tests for you can ask him to test for hormones, which he'll tell you, and is true. First, you got to handle the parasites before you can get to the hormones. It's kind of like a phase if you want like a permanent change. But he will do everything to support upregulating the detox pathways, to absorb the toxins, and then to figure out which supplement is going to kill the parasites most impactfully based off of what you have. So if you think about, like, when you go to Africa, there's some foods that the natives eat, and that is made to help kill parasites. Same thing with South America, with South Pacific, like all those different places. And so that's what I've liked working with him more than any other person, is he has a huge range and he tests all of them on you of which supplements are best, like worldly type supplements, spices, herbs, etc., to help kill that. But not to say he's the only one that does it. That's just who I know. But finding someone who can test the broad spectrum of that, and then giving you a supplement that's really high quality, because supplements, it's crazy. I've been learning so much about supplements and how even supplements that you think are really good, or the doctor in Mexico who's amazing and like played a huge role in helping me heal, but the supplements he gave me that were labeled, so he private labeled them, had tons of fillers that were actually making me really sick because I was having to take so many of them. So it's tricky. And the reason I like this doctor is he actually will take the supplements along with a few other physicians out of San Francisco, and they independently test the supplements, and then they will buy up the whole batch if it's good.
Wow.
He's not cheap though. You know, he's expensive to work with. I think anywhere from $600 to $1,000 for that first visit, but he's very thorough. So it could give you information and get going. So if you want his number, but even if you don't want his number, at least that gives you a sense of the type of doctor and what to look for that might be able to help you.
Well, I appreciate it.
A
lot of information. I know it's not just for me, it's for everybody who wants to hear it. Yeah, but thank you. I appreciate it. We'll be talking more then as things go. I didn't know if Katie wanted some time before it ran out.
Yeah, and I can stay a little bit longer, but Katie, we're on the Lyme and parasite talk this week. So
It was actually good for me because they actually found parasites last time they did my blood work.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
You and I hadn't talked too much about that. I don't think I've even told anybody because it's like, this is almost embarrassing.
Oh,
I have little
girl.
germs in me. So
You have
on
no
the
idea.
blood work, he says that I've got the parasites, I've got the bacteria in my cells, I've got the Lyme, and the one of the things you said just now that kind of tweaked me was the malnutrition aspect of having the parasites and the bacteria in your blood, because they also told me last time, which I think was just last week, that I'm malnourished.
Yeah.
But they didn't tell me that was what it was from.
Yeah.
So I don't know I'm going to cry. I'm all of a sudden really emotional.
Oh.
Is there something that I can do to help what's happening inside me as far as the malnutrition piece?
Yeah. We love you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel you, girl. I so know where you're at. fully understand. And we're holding your hand. And you've got this. It's a journey, but you've got this. You're doing all the right things. It just takes time. I so wish it could be one of those, like, take antibiotics for 2 weeks till you're good.
I know. That would be so nice. Huh?
Oh, I know, right? Yeah. You're doing so much good work, and it's overwhelming and exhausting sometimes, but hang in there. I'm all the way better, and we are walking a very, very, very similar path. You're doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so your question. What you are doing at the West Clinic is probably one of the best things you can be doing to get your body the nutrients it needs. So, Michelle, at the West Clinic, I mentioned they give those IVs, and the IVs that they give are full of vitamins and minerals, especially minerals. For some reason, because we become extremely depleted of minerals when there's Lyme and parasites, pathogens in the body. What happens is that if you imagine that red blood cell again, right? Inside the red blood cell, if there are toxins and inflammation or pathogens inside the red blood cell, it actually impacts the cell absorption, the ability for the cell to absorb vitamins and nutrients. So on one hand, we just want to give it everything it can to get the vitamins and minerals, right? Through the IVs or supplements, through healthy eating. And on the other hand, it's like this, it's like, okay, you're going to get better in this hand, and then the vitamins and minerals, like absorption has to catch up, right? We're going to eliminate the toxins. There's a die-off. We're going to kill parasites. And once that clears out, then we can absorb more vitamins and minerals. And it's like this, I don't even know, like this stepping something. Like it's one thing at a time. They don't both all, or not, it doesn't all happen at once, if that makes sense. And so giving yourself healthy food, vitamins and minerals from IVs and supplements, and just knowing that it is a process to getting your body where it's at to absorb those vitamins and minerals. The other thing I would say is, as many dark leafy greens, like eating the rainbow, the beets, and like that roasted veggies that I showed you guys, are so pretty. I'm like, eating a lot of different vegetables, in particular, apples, or excuse me, I meant berries, like wild huckleberries are really full of like amazing antioxidants and amazing minerals, like include. So, Katie, you have removed those top inflammatory foods. And now there's the nuance of like, okay, what foods can I add to my diet that are the superfoods, right? So, it could be like acai or pomegranate, or the wild huckleberries, the dark leafy greens, the things like cabbage and broccoli and asparagus, these vegetables that actually absorb and bind toxins. When we're talking about binders, the carbonized bamboo, there are vegetables that will also bind those toxins. So like collards are really good at binding those toxins. So the more that you can stick to removing those top inflammatory foods, and then now keep up with the water and add the superpowers, the superfoods, right? The really potent, high antioxidant, high vitamins, high minerals, so that your caloric consumption, like, yes, like I know you don't do rice. I'm just using this as an example, brown rice or oatmeal, or, like some of those yummy comfort foods that we talk about, like they're great. They don't have those inflammatory foods. And for a lot of people, that's all we need. But if we are short in those vitamins and minerals, then let's take that caloric intake, like what fills us up, not necessarily counting calories, but the food that fills us up. And let's make it so that it's really nutrient dense. Wheatgrass, Cucumbers are so good. Celery so good for you. They're just really, really hydrating and full of minerals and vitamins. So looking at those foods and being like, okay, like for me, I'm like, that's not quite as exciting or super delicious, but on a real healing level in terms of getting the vitamins and minerals, that's kind of the next step. And like I said, the IVs are huge. The IVs are huge, what you're doing.
And the other piece that you talked about that tweaked my interest is the biofilm, because they mentioned that I have biofilm forming now, which is the first since I've been going there. I started in August, that they've mentioned that.
My guess is that you've had biofilm because this is how many years or how long have you been dealing with this?
About 27.
Yeah, a long time. So you have had biofilm. It's not just forming now. They may be noticing it now. They may be seeing it now. But I promise you that it's not just all of a sudden biofilm is forming. It may be, and this is so good in some regard, it may be that there is a more distinct pattern of biofilm happening because you're doing your job. All of your treatments are doing their job and killing a lot of Lyme and parasites. That scares them. That makes them want to run to the bunker. And that's what the biofilm is. They want to run to the bunker, hunker down, and they don't want to get bombed, right? So everything you're doing, they're like, uh-oh, like red sirens going off, like watch out, death alert. And so it's then, I'm not exactly sure what they're doing. Like there's some, like I said, some supplements or some things that some can supposedly crack through the biofilm. It's not a magical crack through, or at least that has been my experience, and everyone is unique, and I don't like to put my experience on someone else. But taking a supplement, like say cat's claw, which supposedly is one of the things that I was told could help break a biofilm, taking a supplement and ingesting it internally, it only can go so far. So the parasites in the Lyme, if they're in our red blood cells, that's like every tissue all over in our body, right? They can be deep in the organs. It could be like taking a supplement orally is not going to get into every tissue all over in our body. So it can get to some areas. That is why the IVs are so good. It can just get to so many more places in your body. And sometimes they say ozone can crack the biofilms, but also sometimes it's just like waiting, giving your body, and I would ask this to Dr. West, like at what point in time, once all the Lyme, the active Lyme and parasites are like, okay, we don't see that anymore, then it's like, okay, give yourself a break, which can be mentally the tough part, because you're like, okay, yay, I feel so much better. And then you wait and then they may be like, we're peeking our head out of the bunker. Is it safe to come? And because there's not treatments coming at them, then they come out, right? And they can hatch out of their eggs or out of the biofilm. And that's when we want to attack again. Explode. So the timing can be tricky. And just because some parasites or some bacteria come out of the biofilm at that time doesn't mean all of them will. That's honestly, I think that's the hardest part of this journey, is that it's like this. It's so up and down, and you just want to cry uncle, right?
I've experienced that every week for since about the third week in. And they had me coming over every day, like they do at first. And it got to the point where it would make me so sick that I would be sick until I had to turn around and go back again. And I did cry uncle. And they sent me back to only 2 days a week. And that was better. But I was still having like I would still be sick right up until time to go back again. And I'd get there and I'd be like, oh, I feel better today. And then they'd do something and I would be sick for another week. And 2 weeks ago, they decided to just have me come every other week because it's still smacking me down so far.
Yeah.
And I feel like I want to throw everything at it and just get through it. And they keep telling me that that's not the way it works.
Well, because here's why is when we are detoxing that hard, if our body can't process all those toxins, all the neurotoxin, like all the parasites are dying, the Lyme are dying and releasing massive amounts of neurotoxins, that's what's making you so sick primarily. And when that happens, if our body can't process those toxins, we reabsorb the neurotoxins, which just makes it even more difficult for the red blood cells to absorb the nutrients and minerals and stay hydrated, and compromises our immune system even more. Like it impacts our hormones, like it impacts everything on such a systemic level. And so it's like you just want to get through it and be done and like move on with your life. But it is walking kind of this fine line between what your body can handle and what's too much. Not the mind, the physical body. Yeah. The mind is important too, right? But sometimes we can be like, I will will myself through there. I don't care. Just like give it to me. But there's the body can only do so much. So are you in Pocatello?
I'm not now, no.
Okay. There is a machine. Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say there's a machine called a whole cat, HOLCAT or CATT, whole cat machine. It was recently introduced to our town at a really awesome, like alternative healing type place. And it was designed for cancer and Lyme patients. People are having tremendous healing. It's 7 different settings. So it does the infrared, it does the ozone, it does vibrational frequency work that you can put like on setting, like Lyme or parasite settings. It has this, now I'm going to forget the name, carbonic acid that goes into, you're in like a pod, like your head is out, but everything else is in like this pod kind of. And the carbonic acid goes into the pod and actually opens up your capillaries so that you can absorb the ozone and everything else so much more impactfully. And my dad has been very, very ill, like me. We've been on this journey together because we were down in the Amazon fishing and got crazy parasites down there. And anyhow, and I'm pretty sure the parasites actually gave us the Lyme because we have kind of some different strains of Lyme that were a bit unique. But anyhow, he and I have both done the whole cat machine. The first time it knocked me down hard. It detoxes a lot, so you can set the settings and go like really significantly lower. They say you want to do 10 sessions at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. I'm doing it every other week because I'm like, I feel good and I don't need to make myself feel bad. But the reason it really helps people is because there's so much oxygen going into the body. Like my dad this morning was like, I'm detoxing through my skin. Like he gets these bumps and he itches, but he said, I'm not detoxing like where you just feel like your body's so heavy and you can't hardly think and your eyes just want to be closed. And you know, that detox where you're just like feel completely passed out, where you just feel unresponsive kind of, you know, that kind of detox. Yeah. He's like, I'm not experiencing any of that, and his energy is good and he's sleeping better, but he's like, I'm really feeling it through my skin. So there's how the way they formulated it, it doesn't put you into the same state of detox. It helps to upregulate the detox pathways. It helps to support your body so it can push the toxins out more effectively. So I don't know, you know, you could Google whole cat and see like where's the nearest whole cat near you, and you could give it a shot. If you did, I would start, like, they'll recommend starting at like 50% or 40% and working your way up and doing it for 30 minutes. I would say like start at 25% for 20 minutes and do like half, like, of all the other settings, they do all these other different components to it. I would say like do half of, if I'm trying to remember what the names of the other kind of therapies that come with it, but say they recommend you do these other therapies for 10 minutes while you're in the whole cat, do it for half. Like, just do it really, really low, see how you feel, and gently work your way up. People in our town are having incredible results. Like, people who had done everything, been everywhere. This one woman, I mean, she was like on her last leg and she has rebounded. Like, people are having really amazing results. Everyone's different, and I don't understand, like, I don't know fully, obviously, what's going on with all the nuances of your body, but it's something at least you could research and look into. Ask Dr. West about, see what you think.
They do have a new light therapy machine over there now that they put these pads on your belly and on your chest, and they do UV light therapy through it. Oh, they put it on your head too.
Oh, wow.
I've just had that a couple of times, but they say that's going to increase my energy, but I don't know what it's called or anything. It's just like, oh, light therapy, okay.
Yeah. I mean, all of that vibrational work, frequency work, light therapy, all of that is really, really potent for parasites, for Lyme. And I think the reason this machine is so powerful is because it does all of it at once and gets you the oxygen supply so you can detox more easily. It's my theory.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's totally right, but that's been my experience and other people's.
I'm going to try to find one.
Yeah, see if you can find one. Where do you live right now? Where are you?
I live in the Boise area.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we have one in Jackson. But I bet you anything there's one in Boise.
You would think so, huh?
I would think so. Yeah.
I was just going to mention that the first doctor who diagnosed my Lyme did it with the muscle testing in the little vials.
Yeah.
So just a little confirm
really
for you.
Totally. I mean, it's like, it sounds woo-woo, but I'm like, it's for me, it's been the most accurate thing this whole time.
My husband was sitting there watching him, and he was about ready to walk out,
Yeah.
And then, and we hadn't told him. I knew that I'd been bit by a tick, and I knew that I had all the symptoms. I knew exactly when it happened, but we just forgotten because we've been poo-pooed so many times that we didn't even tell him. And the doctor looked at my husband and he said, "You're ready to walk out of here, aren't you?" And my husband said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I just want you to know your wife has a full-blown case of Lyme disease." And my husband about hit the floor because he knew that we hadn't told him. And it was like, oh my gosh, all these years I've been saying it and nobody listened.
I have like full body chills hearing that. Yeah. I mean, it's true.
Yes.
It's so true.
Yes.
My husband was the same way, because I think it's like, to be diagnosed with something that's so severe or chronic, we're just used to blood tests and the traditional, like, for some reason, seeing something on a piece of paper from blood feels more concrete. But the truth is, it's so limited to what it can test. It's so limited to what the state our body is in when it's being tested. Like, there's so many different variables. And I find that so more often than not, those tests are actually less validating than the quantum neurology.
Right. The sad thing was that the doctor who diagnosed it didn't know what to do with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
he didn't help me at all with the Lyme.
Huh. Well, at least he got you the diagnosis, because when we don't know what's going on, like, then it's really hard to heal. If it's especially pathogen, if it's just a lot of chronic symptoms will actually heal with diet and removing the inflammation. But as soon as we involve pathogens and neurotoxins, it's a different, like, that's a piece to it, but there's definitely the supplements. Like, there's a whole nother level that you have to address in order to really get rid of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I love you. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. You have been, I just so wish I could give you a big hug, because I'm I'm really, really, really grateful for you and being so vulnerable. And you're just like, you are a gift. And to this community, to us, you inspire me. Truly, you really, really do every single day. Like, always have hope, always like know you're on the right path, and know that you are doing what is so right for your healing. And in those dark times, just remember that there, you know, there is light. And all of the difficulties and the obstacles, the depth and, you know, the intensity that you're experiencing now, as you come out of this, you're going to experience the same intensity of joy and connection and passion with your life. Like, all of that is going to come back.
I'm so ready for that.
I know. Yeah. Well, we still have more time. So if anything comes up if you listen to this again, or as you're soaking through things, just ask away and I'm here for you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny.
Okay. Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too. Bye-bye.